Hey everyone, welcome back to K-Korner, the channel where we dive into the wild world of entitled people and their unbelievable stories. Hope you enjoy it, and without further ado, let's go. I've had migraines since I was 3 or 4. Sometimes they start slow and sometimes they hit like a hammer. I can be instantly unable to function if they hit quickly. In college, this could be a huge problem. The only available medications just knocked you out, so you didn't care that you hurt and wanted to vomit. My freshman year, 1987, I was at a party for my roommate's boyfriend's birthday. I had never had champagne and didn't know a migraine trigger. I took a sip or two of drink and instantly got a migraine. We were at someone's house about 20 minutes away from the dorm. My roommate didn't want to leave the party, so she arranged for a guy she knew to drive me home. She had no idea what he was really like. She just knew him from a few parties. On the drive that I thought was to my dorm, this guy pulls over on the side of the road in an undeveloped area. No one was around. He tried to harass me, and when I tried running away, he caught up to me and assaulted me and left me on the side of the road. I didn't even know where I was, much less how to get back to the dorm or to a hospital. After a while, some lady found me curled up on the side of the road. She thought I was dead. Cell phones were not a thing, so she half-lifted me into her car, wrote down where she found me, and drove me to the nearest hospital. I could barely speak enough to tell the hospital people my name. I was beaten black and blue by this guy. The hospital knocked me out for about 8 hours with pain meds and muscle relaxers once they were sure I didn't have a head injury. He only hit me in places that it would not show. My roommate didn't get home until about a day after I did. She was staying at her boyfriend's dorm room. She probably wouldn't have come home as early as she did, but her parents called at the same time every weekend and she had to be home for that. She was shocked when she saw how beat up I looked. I asked her how she knew that guy and learned she didn't really, he was just at a party now and then. I wasn't happy with the situation or that she let some creep she barely knew drive me somewhere. She felt really guilty, but guys don't advertise that they like to beat girls. She did have some information on the guy. He didn't live in our city, but instead went to a really Christian school with a great law school. He was in law school and was visiting for the party. His dad was a really well-known lawyer for a televangelist church. That was the beginning of what I learned about him. Remember, social media did not exist at the time. I called some other people who knew him from the party and got some information from them. I learned his girlfriend's name. Then I went to the library and learned about his girlfriend, the church, the law school, the college he was at, etc. I had photos from the hospital. I had declined to press charges because even then, I knew that it would be hard to prove, even with all bruises. It would be my word against his. He was from a good family and went to a Christian college and law school. My family was not prominent, and I was a girl that was back from a party that night. At the time, it was normal for lawyers to smear assault victims based on what they wore, if they had a drink, especially if they were under 21, etc. I didn't want to have to deal with all of that. I just wanted to ruin his life without having it ruin mine. I got phone numbers for the dean of his law school, the head of the college overall, for his father, for his girlfriend, and for the person who owned his apartment complex. He lived in some fancy apartment owned by a guy who was a big donor to the college. It was for people getting master's or law degrees or medical degrees after they already had bachelor degrees. The apartments were given out as a type of scholarship to the school, and they were supposed to be really nice. I never went there, so I don't know firsthand what they are like, but I heard about them from this guy's friends. I wrote some letters, including tear stains that made some of the writing blur a bit. I included copies of the photos of my bruises. I said that I didn't want to press charges because I knew it would be an embarrassment to the college law school televangelist, his parents, whichever one fit the person I was writing to. I just thought they ought to know because he could harm a member of their family congregation school. He could also be a huge publicity nightmare if he did this to someone else, and I didn't want that. I called the girlfriend, her number was in the phone book, and told her that her boyfriend harassed and beat me. She cried and said he had beaten her too, but she thought it was her fault. I told her it was not my fault in my incident. I was trying not to puke when he attacked me. I told her to stop seeing him and have nothing to do with him if he treated her that way. She said that her family would be upset, as he was from such a good family, and he was so well thought of at the law school. I didn't tell her that I was working on ruining that for him. I sat back and waited for things to happen after I mailed the letters. His family was shocked, but not surprised. They wrote me an apology saying he had been in trouble before, but they thought he had gotten better after the church intervened in his life. Apparently he hadn't, and they were cutting ties to him. The man who owned the apartments actually called me. He wanted to hear what happened from me, so he could figure out if I was telling the truth. So I told him what happened and why I didn't press charges. He believed me and started eviction proceedings. A representative from the church called me to ask me to stop telling lies about the guy. I told them that they shouldn't protect someone like him. To ask girls he dated how he behaved because his girlfriend told me that he beat her when he got angry. They were shocked. I never heard from the college, but the dean of the law school called me. He asked if I told the truth and assured him that I had. DNA wasn't commonly used. It was first used in a criminal case that year, so it was my word v. His word. Just the accusation was enough to have the guy kicked out of law school, especially with the photos of my bruises and the tear stains on my letters, which was the reason I wrote them out by hand and let myself cry while I wrote them. Apparently those accepted to that law school should be above reproach. I don't know if they would have handled it the same way if I tried to prosecute the guy, but since I was trying to keep it quiet so I didn't harm the school's reputation, it meant I was a good girl who could be believed. I was actually surprised that the letters had so much success. I expected his father to send a letter telling me to stop slandering his son. The letter saying they were cutting all ties to him was a surprise, but a good one. Sadly, it indicated that I was probably not the first to accuse him. About a year later, I found out he was working for a company installing carpet in homes. I called that company and told them that they were sending a rapist into people's home. I even offered to send photos of the bruises if they wanted them. The woman that I spoke to was horrified. Just the idea that he had been accused of assault and that I cared enough to call when I learned he was going into people's homes was enough for her. I learned that not only did the company fire him, they called other companies and told them what a liability he would be if they hired him. He had started to drink heavily by that point, at least according to the friends who knew him at my school. I went on with my life, got therapy to help me cope, eventually got married, and have had almost 30 years with an amazing husband. I don't know what happened to this guy, but I know he never became a lawyer, his dream. I know that I made his life a lot harder. I did Google him a few years ago. He has had many arrests and was spending a few years behind bars. I like to think that by getting him kicked out of law school and getting his family to understand that he was very much unreformed, I helped speed him into the defendant's chair in a courtroom. I have a second to senior position in my department at work, so theoretically I have my choice of station to go to when I come in as long as my senior doesn't want it. My senior coworker has a station she always goes to, and it's understood that she likes the third station and I like seventh station. Our stations are even denoted by personal items and magnets. My station is preferred because I have medical issues with overheating and the floor fan points at that location. My personal items at that station include a backup fan, in case the big one just isn't enough. Now this fan is way quieter than the big fan. The new manager complains about the noise of the big one. I have poor hearing and it doesn't bug me. Recently, the new manager has started stealing my station because the fan in it is quieter when everyone knows there's a preference. Whatever, it's the least awful thing she's done, so it doesn't matter much to me as long as I'm not there to need the station. Where she crosses the line is stealing my station right at the start of my shift. I ask her if I could have my station since there are plenty of open stations. She says, "No, you need to be able to work at any station." Knowing that I have an agreement with the office that I can always have the floor fan on if I need it, I start to get some ideas and questions so I can have my personal fan for my things first, right? She quickly gives me that awful manager who thinks they're Godface. "No, go to your station now and start typing or I'll write you up for not starting on time." I comply like the peaceful worker drone I am and click on the big fan while going to the station right next to her. At this point, I'm already sweating, but I'm close enough to the fan that I won't pass out. Just then she clicks the fan off. I sluggishly click it back on. It goes off and on for a whole hour, but at this point I'm seeing spots, so I give her a heads up. The office says the fan stays on if I need it on. She goes to click it right back on. I don't care. This thing is too loud. I'm almost office staff anyways, and things will change around here soon. Within the next 2 hours, I'm unresponsive due to heat sickness. At this point, I've been magically placed in a medical unit for a few hours. I don't know how I got here or who called, but my girlfriend brought my things from work, but all she got out of the managers was that I'm dismissed for a few days. All I know right now is that the new manager has a paradigm report to worry about, and I hopefully get my spot from now on. Edit. I fixed the spacing, and as for the fan, I stopped taking it home because the lobby staff kept making me give the receipt for it and not buzzing me out until I proved it was mine. Part of an old manager's rules because a coworker kept trying to take a keyboard home, but I'm going to just suck it up from now on so I know I'll have my fan. Last night around 10 p.m., I was taking my dog for a walk through the neighborhood. We don't have a yard, so we have to walk her 3x per day so she can do her business. I always pick up after her, and people usually give a friendly wave when they see us. Not tonight. My dog starts doing her duty at the edge of someone's yard while I stand on the street holding the leash. I'm starting to pull out my poop bag when this woman comes running up to us yelling, "Don't let your dog poop here." I was surprised and weirded out, but I told her, "Don't worry, I'm picking it up." She keeps getting closer to us yelling, "No, don't let your dog poop on my property." My window is open and I don't want to smell it. Control your dog. Make your dog stop. My dog is mid-turd at the moment, so I explained that dogs don't work that way. I told her I can't stop her from pooping, but I will pick it up. The lady's not listening to me and just keeps getting closer to us, yelling about dog poop or something. My dog starts growling at her, so I warn her by saying, "Please don't get close to my dog. She does bite." Then the lady says, "Okay, I'm calling the cops." "They're going to arrest you." I say that's fine, and ask her to please go in her house and call the cops. She tries to enter her house, but it seems whoever she lives with has locked her out of the house. I wonder why. She starts running toward me again, and I again warn her that my dog will bite. My dog is growling and barking now, because dogs don't like screaming Karens in their face. Karen starts screaming at me to pick up the poop, and that she's calling police to have me arrested, etc. I said, "Ma'am, I'll deal with that later. Right now, your hostile behavior is creating an unsafe situation for me and my dog, so we're going to leave now." She starts screaming profanities, calling me names, and chasing after me. I just continue to walk away thinking it'll end there. "No," she continues to follow me down the street. I hear her yelling into her phone at the police to come arrest me. I hear her telling them I threatened her with dog bite. She has a thick Asian accent. I just keep walking, knowing the cops are telling her to go home and they'll deal with it later. Never. She continues to walk behind me at about a 15-foot distance. She's now yelling in another language at someone who I assume is the person who locked her out of the house. I hope she'll stop following me eventually so I can go home. I don't want her to see where I live, so I take several detours, but she just keeps following me from 15 feet away. I don't have my phone, so I can't call for help. I decide to head into the downtown area to find someone to help. This lady followed me almost a mile into town. From 15 feet away, she just silently followed me walking my dog through neighborhoods, business districts, and across the highway into town. She had her phone out, recording me. I was getting really annoyed and made it to a busy bar with 5 young men standing outside. Unfortunately, they're all speaking in a foreign language as well. I turn around and tell the lady to stop following me. She starts yelling, "You follow me back my house for police to arrest you." "You threaten me dog bite? Follow me now." "Police won't arrest you," I told her. "Sure, I'll follow you." "You lead the way." She almost fell for it, but she saw me try to slip away and turned around and started her whole yelling thing again. The young men outside the bar just kept talking amongst themselves. I continued walking through town with the lady following, recording me on her phone. I finally ran into a woman who approached me with a very concerned look on her face. I said, "Can you please help me? This lady has been following me for over an hour." The nice lady said, "I know. I've been watching this go on for a minute." She confronted the Karen, telling her to leave me alone. The nice lady looked at me and said, "Just go." So while Karen was busy yelling at the nice lady about how my dog pooped or whatever, I just started running. I ran through a couple businesses and onto a back street and managed to lose Karen. I walked a full mile back to my house and locked the door behind me. I don't know what kind of crazy that was. All I know is that I feel really bad for whoever was inside that house with the doors locked. I hope they're okay. Enjoying the stories yet? If you do, please subscribe, like, and comment. Man, let me tell you about this crazy trip I had with my buddies last summer. We decided to hit the road, just explore some places. Now, keep in mind, we're not from the States. We're from the Middle East, where the sun feels like it's on a mission to turn everyone into a walking, talking barbecue. So, there we are, cruising along in this bus. It's hot as hell outside, and we're just praying the act doesn't give up on us. And then, the universe throws Karen at us. Yeah, Karen with a capital K, the whole deal. She's got this newborn baby, and you'd think she'd be, a bit more understanding given the circumstances. We got this nice dude on the bus just vibing in the front seat. Karen waltzes up, demanding his seat because, she's got a baby. And surprisingly, the guy's like, sure, no problem. Now, this dude is a legend, right? He's giving up his prime real estate for the sake of Karen and her tiny human. We're thinking, okay, this might be a decent trip. Oh boy, were we wrong. As soon as Karen secures the front seat, she decides it's too cold for her precious offspring. In the scorching Middle Eastern summer, go figure. So she orders the driver to shut off the act. Now we're all sweating bullets, and Karen is acting like she's doing us a favor. One of my friends, a real MV, decides she's had enough. She struts up to the driver and tells him to crank up the act. The driver's cool about it, turns up the chill, and you'd think we just declared war. Karen goes ballistic like she's auditioning for a role in a soap opera. She storms back, and instead of blaming my friend, he targets me and my crew. Oh, don't have any respect. My baby could freeze to death because of you, she shouts, drama queen style. My friend fires back, telling her she doesn't own the bus, and that's when things get wild. Karen, fueled by the heat and her own entitlement, takes a swing at my friend. The slap was like something out of a badly choreographed movie. Slow, awkward, and thankfully, mostly air. We're all shocked, like, did that really just happen? Enter the hero we never knew we needed. This elderly lady, a total badass. She tells Karen to sit down or face the consequences at the next police checkpoint. I'm sitting there thinking, okay, Granny got some serious game. Karen, now realizing she's outmatched, reluctantly sits her entitled butt down. Turns out, this Granny is with us for the long haul. She shoots us this sly smile like she just saved the day. We're all silently cheering for her because, let's be real, Karen needed a reality check. The bus becomes this awkward, tension-filled space, but at least we've got the yak working. We're cruising through the desert and Granny decides to strike up a conversation. Turns out, she's been on more adventures than all of us combined. She starts dropping wisdom bombs about life, love, and the importance of standing up to entitled people. We learn she's been to places we've only seen in pictures and has stories that could rival a Netflix series. Granny's got this no-nonsense attitude, and we're hanging on to her every word. It's like having a living, breathing encyclopedia of badassery on board. As the miles pass, we forget about Karen and her shenanigans. We're engrossed in Granny's tales of wild escapades and close encounters with everything from sandstorms to wild animals. She's been through it all and lived to tell the tale. At one point, we hit a police checkpoint and Karen, still grumbling, shoots us dirty look. Granny ain't having it. She leans over and whispers, "Watch this." When the officer comes on board to check things out, Granny starts spinning a tale about how Karen was causing a disturbance, and she thought the baby might be in danger. The officer looks at Karen, then at Granny, and without missing a beat, tells Karen to keep it down or face consequences. Granny gives us a wink, and we can't help but burst into silent laughter. By the time we reach our destination, we're almost sad to say goodbye to Granny. She's become this unexpected hero in our journey, the one who stood up to Karen and made the whole bus ride a lot more entertaining. As we part ways, Granny leaves us with some parting words of wisdom, something about facing the heat, both literally and metaphorically. We thank her for saving us from a Korean-induced meltdown and watch as she disappears into the crowd, undoubtedly off to her next adventure. And that, my friend, is the tale of the bus ride from hell turned epic, all thanks to a feisty Granny who knew how to put entitled Koreans in their place. Life's an adventure, and sometimes you find the most unexpected heroes along the way. Background. My cousin, 23 female, recently opened up her own salon. From a young age, she taught herself how to thread wax eyebrows and developed an interest in makeup and hair. Everyone in our extended family would go to her before events and on a monthly basis for their threading, waxing, hair, and makeup needs. In 2020, she had a full-time job, non-salon related, but decided to renovate the basement of her home to create a small salon space. She now spends her free time taking clients in her at-home salon, and there's nothing but great reviews. Her sister helped with the renovations and now helps her with marketing the business, social media, community pages, and I help with the finances, budgeting, price setting. We all support her and are really proud of her. The salon is our baby. We're now in the middle of a pandemic, and this greatly affected her salon business. As a result, she implemented safety measures, and our small team made sure to keep up with COVID regulations in our city. This included having one customer inside at a time, doing temperature checks, making masks, face shields, and gloves mandatory, wiping down the salon after each client, etc. Also, when our city was in lockdown, the salon was closed as it is not an essential service. Incident. Our city is once again in lockdown since the end of December to the end of January. The salon has been closed since the lockdown began. The salon's social media pages had been updated to let the current clientele know that the salon is closed. Now comes the Karen. Karen sees a community post from October detailing a discount that the salon was having on a certain package we offer. She comments on the post saying that she can't believe the salon is open in the middle of a lockdown when her salon has to be closed. This is important for later. Karen fails to notice that this post was made in October, when salons were allowed to operate as long as they followed safety regulations. Karen doesn't bother checking more recent posts indicating that the salon was closed. My cousin doesn't see her reply at this time. The next day, 2 police officers show up at my cousin's door while she's at a doctor's appointment. The officers ask for my cousin, and my aunt lets them know that she's not home right now. My aunt does not speak English very well and lets the officers know that she would call my cousin and ask her to come home. Maybe the officers didn't believe her, but they insisted on coming inside the home. My aunt had already called my cousin as she was worried. My cousin asked what it was about, but my aunt didn't know. My cousin then asked if they had a warrant for anything. When she found out they didn't, she told her mom not to let them come inside and that she would be there in about 20 minutes. My cousin began driving home when my aunt called her to let her know that they simply left. Hearing this, my cousin was less worried and decided to go grocery shopping as planned before heading home. Turns out, the officers came back half an hour later and once again demanded to see my cousin. My aunt called my cousin again and asked her to come home, but in the 20 minutes it took to come home, the officers were gone. They had left a card and asked her to call back. My cousin managed to get a hold of the officers and was told that someone had reported her business. They claimed that she was operating during the lockdown and they had proof. My cousin knew this wasn't true as the salon had been closed for quite a while. By now, my cousin had seen the comment from earlier and mentioned that she knew exactly what their so-called proof was, but the post in question was from October. My cousin was very upset as this post was not even close to being the actual evidence of her operating now, in January. She was also very upset that they insisted on coming inside the house with no cause or warrant when they could clearly see that my aunt does not understand the language very well. At the end of the conversation, the police officer apologized to my cousin and we thought it was the end of it. You must be wondering how we know that Karen was the one who called the cops. Well, she told us. The next day, my cousin received a message she realized was from the woman who commented on the post. Karen decided to pretend like she a customer. Karen, can I book an appointment? My cousin, hey love, we are currently closed due to the lockdown. Once the lockdown is over, we will be more than happy to book you in. Karen, oh, my Jeff was there yesterday. My apologies. My cousin, you must have gotten the date wrong. The salon is not taking clients until lockdown is over. Thank you. Thank you. Karen, P, but I didn't get the date wrong, lol. I also know the police came due to you being open. Take care. My cousin, I'm not going to sit here and entertain your boring life. Maybe for a change you can find another hobby rather than spreading lies and wasting people's time, including the police's time. Or even better, find an actual job. Have a good night. Karen, I own my own spa. That's closed as should yours be. My mom is the one who called the cops. You are not entertaining me at all. Go back to your own country instead of messing with ours. My cousin decided to block her at this point. My cousin was happy this was all over. Her sister and I were still outraged at the racist comment and how someone could make up lies about a small business that led to the cops terrifying my aunt. When my cousin told me about Karen, the fact that she had her own spa really stood out. I did some digging. Revenge. Turns out Karen runs her own spa out of her house. Doing some more snooping, I found reviews from her clients on her business page that were posted on days that the city was under lockdown. The reviews could be from clients who received services before the lockdown and only now had a chance to write a review. To be sure, I found Karen's Instagram page. I decided to use her own trick against her. I created a new account with a generic name and followed her page so she couldn't see that I was related to my cousin. I then messaged her to ask about the prices for her services. Me, hey, I love your pics. I was wondering how much you charge. Karen, hey, girl, thank you so much. What service are you after? Me, I'm really interested in the BB Glow facial. Karen, that's awesome. My biggest seller, for sure. Normally it's $125, but it's on BOGO, so you pay for one session and get two. Me, that's such a great deal compared to others. When is your next available date? Karen, where are you located? I can't have people come to me in lockdown, but I travel to my clients. Karen was not operating from her home location due to lockdown restrictions, but was traveling to her clients' homes, which is still against regulations. I then made up a lie about my home not having adequate space and asked for her address so we could meet up at my friend's place somewhere between her and I's locations. She foolishly told me her address. During this time, I also tried joining other community groups that she was a part of. In one particular group, people in the community were promoting their small businesses. She had recently made a post about discounts on her services for the month of January. I immediately went online and submitted a report about her business still operating, including screenshots, her address, full name, etc. A few days passed by and I'd forgotten to check up on it as I was busy with life again. I saw the incident report number on a sticky note I had on my desk and decided to check in. Apparently, this was not Karen's first offense. Karen had already been fined $750 for having a client in her home during the first lockdown in my city. After being fined, she decided to change her business model and go to the client's home instead. Now she was fined $10,000. I was still following her on Instagram, so I decided to check it out. She had gone on a rant about how she was going to do very bad things to the person who reported her. She also mentioned that she was no longer allowed to run her business. I'm not sure what type of ban the regional police put on her, but I immediately deleted the account and exited the groups I had joined earlier. At the end of the day, Karen got what she deserved, and I fulfilled my dream of pretending to be Sherlock Holmes. My father-in-law lives in our town, and for the past few years, since my husband and I moved here and had children, we've seen him regularly, at least weekly, and allowed him to be a part of many family events, Christmas morning, trick-or-treating, etc. The problem is, I can't stand him, and I think recently the fact that he's a perpetual part of my life is getting to me. My husband and I talk about this at length and really don't know how to handle it, as he is constantly applying pressure to see us, and when he doesn't hear from us even for a few days, makes us stink. I'd love to know what those who have local grandparents and parents have in terms of expectations for time spent. For details, apologies, it was impossible to be concise. Off the bat, important to share that undoubtedly my female 34, father-in-law 78, is a textbook narcissist, diagnosed as the worst ones are. He was a terrible husband, verbally, emotionally, and perhaps physically abused my mother-in-law and brother-in-law, who is 10 years older than my husband. He really screwed up my brother-in-law, who at 44 is also a huge narcissist with depression and other mental health challenges, and he cheated on my mother-in-law when my husband was 8. Because they divorced after that, my husband miraculously ended up really unscathed and had a great childhood and fine relations with his dad, likely due to his mother shielding him and playing the role of primary caregiver. In fact, father-in-law somehow managed to remain a part of everyone's lives, having some custody of my husband. Brother-in-law was an adult by the time of the split, combining holidays with my mother-in-law and her new husband, and just generally being around. When I first met my husband, father-in-law was in a new relationship with a woman who was wonderful. This was after 3 failed marriages, my mother-in-law being his third, and a long-term partnership, 18 years. When you first meet him, he seems like a character more than anything, very grandiose, clearly thinks he's charming and full of anecdotes. Anyone who gets to know him, however, finds that the anecdotes are the same and tired, and he can actually be quite rude, domineering of conversations, selfish, and stingy. His girlfriend broke up with him after 8 years, which at first seemed like a shock to us, but quickly was not all that surprising, given how much better she was than him. She explained the breakup to him well, that for all his good qualities, she simply couldn't handle his bad ones anymore, in particular how he acts in public, rudeness, stinginess, extra pompous behavior. The breakup devastated him, and while he initially seemed to reflect on the feedback she gave, it quickly became her fault for the split, and he, being entirely alone in his life, became increasingly needy and more present in our lives than I had ever known him to be. We had just had our first child and thick in the throes of newborn life weren't able to offer him as much company as my brother-in-law was able to, although I will note he still was seeing us for an hour or so weekly. He became increasingly codependent with my brother-in-law, spending many evenings at his house late into the night, attending parties my brother-in-law hosted, and even vacationing with my brother-in-law and family. Now, brother-in-law also can get irritated at his dad, and their relationship is a constant roller coaster of fighting or being attached at the hip. I'm sure there were complex psychological reasons for why brother-in-law was so supportive of him, but Datch and I later realized that his motivation was at least partially financial. We realized this when we found out that our father-in-law bought a vacation home in an area brother-in-law loves and put brother-in-law's name on the deed. Now that situation could be an entirely different post, but very quickly a fight ensued. Brother-in-law cut off all contact with father-in-law. They sold the house, and 2 years later still have not spoken. This fallout then left father-in-law with no one, except for us. We tried to keep the same cadence of visits with him that we always had, weekly or so, dinners or quick visits with our children. However, driven largely by the fact that he really is alone, the requests to see us have done nothing but increase. Our ability to tolerate him waxes and wanes over time, so over the course of the last years we have had times that we've been more amenable to seeing him than not. Important to note my use of the word tolerate, because at best, when we spend time with him, it's fine. At worst, it's painstaking. It's also important for me to share the ways he is guilting us to see him. First is the explicit, shameless guilt. Haven't heard from you in a while, or I'm not getting any younger, or I won't be around forever, so I need to spend time with my granddaughters. He is not shy to tell us what we should be doing in terms of involving him. Second is trying to buy us and make us feel indebted through thinly veiled offers to help. This is where I struggle the most. Years ago, he gifted us a large sum of money, which we've kept in savings, that he explained was to make us even with my brother-in-law, who he had lent the same amount of money to years prior and never received repayment, or mention of repayment for. Father-in-law said that in doing so, he wouldn't have any worries of inequity at the time of his death when his will was being executed. I wasn't super comfortable taking the money, but knowing it was to equalize with the brother-in-law helped. Additionally, my father-in-law has given us some significant gifts. He's paid to install a safety fence around our pool. I justified this as something for my daughters, and gave us a new washer-dryer as a Christmas gift. I didn't really want either of these gifts to happen because I felt they wouldn't be guilt-free, and because we were able to pay for them ourselves, but father-in-law practically begged as he wanted to contribute as we had just moved into a new house. Additionally, my own parents had contributed similarly to our home as well. Again, another way I justified. Since, his offers to pay for things for us have not ceased, but my husband and I have agreed we will not accept anything from him again, to avoid feeling associated guilt. It's obvious that his offers are a way to have control. In fact, following his fallout with brother-in-law, he quickly removed brother-in-law from his will, instead bequeathing his share to a local animal shelter. He did this, as he explained to us, because he knew if he left it all to my husband, we would feel compelled to share it with my brother-in-law. Third, and finally, he guilt-trips us by constantly comparing what he gets to what my parents get in terms of time with us and my daughters. My parents are also local, much younger, 60, still working, have a house with nursery and kids, toys, and treats, and are equipped to care for our children. We see them every week or 2 weeks, but in general have more meaningful time with them too. We vacation with them and they are the backup caretakers for our daughters, keeping them for nights or weekends when we are away or being backup care on snow days or sick days. He is constantly whining about not having time as compared to them, and while we could explain all of the reasons that logistically my parents get more time with us and the girls, ultimately we prefer them because they are normal, loving, and supportive, no-strings-attached parents who on top of it all are people we enjoy being around. And of course I'm biased to my own family, but my husband fully agrees. So all of this huge context aside, I'm really struggling on how to handle him. We've been living in a cycle of excuses on putting off seeing him and then seeing him when we have to throw him a bone, only to be guilted about it not being enough. Despite his terrible past, he's never explicitly done anything wrong to us, nor is there any tangible evidence I can point to explaining why I don't want him around. He obviously doesn't take feedback either, so a rational discussion about his behavior is off the table, and he is not a normal person who reads the room so won't get a clue and back off. I'm just wondering how much is he owed to see us, given all of this. He is a grandfather after all, and my daughters do have fun with him, but they have fun with everyone. And if the answer is nothing or not much, how do we manage making that happen? Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more captivating stories. Share your own experiences, opinions in the comments below, and let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay tuned for more epic tales.